Hello, folks. Céad míle fáilte. This to the first chat we have this year. And what the start of the year. Wow. Everything just seems to be coming out, doesn't it? All the different places with the protests and it's really starting to ramp up. I was lucky enough to end last year on a bang. Myself and a few others, we held a vigil in the Garden of Remembrance for our 85th anniversary of on Bonrock, our Constitution. Not the one now Google is saying, the blue one that Google is saying is the 1937. No, the real one. But yeah, it went really good. A few Irish people got together, and we just played music, told stories and poems and stuff like that. So it was quite good. He's all welcome here to Air Is Falling, where we try to share the truth for those who's willing to seek it. That's what it's all about. Because RT don't do it anymore, sadly. They're meant to be air national, broadcasters, and they just don't do it. But to start off the year, I have a lady on now. I first came across this lady. Actually, oddly enough, she was on one of our chats as a listener. And I was just listening to her story, and she was talking to a few of the girls and a few of the people that were there in the chat. And I really liked her story. So I thought I'd ask her on, and just want to see if she's there. Yeah. So tonight we have a chat with Séana Kerr. Really passionate. She's a passionate lady. She was a midwife for over 17 years, but I know she did other things leading up to that. But sure, we bring her in and let her tell her story. Are you there, Séana?
Is that me now?
That's Hello. You now. Hello, how are you?
Hello, Mark. How are you? Technology isn't really my thing. Sorry.
No. Leave you to delivering babies, huh?
Well, I actually managed to download Telegram on my computer, so I'm very proud of myself so that the phone wouldn't interrupt me, Anyway, How are you?
It's a good offer. Welcome, anyway. Welcome to the channel and welcome to the world of computers, They do say they're going to take over sometime, but, I don't know. I suppose we could start off, if you want to say something about yourself first, who is Séana Kerr, and before you go into the details of things, just give us a little background of yourself, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no problem. Well, I am Séana Kerr. I was born on the 13th of October 1971 in a wee place called Carton Nursing Home in Portadown. An only daughter of Eileen and Mickey Kerr, and I have 3 brothers. And I just give the context because it all works itself out later on,
Yeah.
I grew up in a council housing estate in County Armagh in the 70s and 80s, so a lot of people would understand what that means. And I'm very proud of my... But you know what? I'm so proud of my roots because my roots are the reason that I'm still standing today, so...
Yeah.
I remember someone telling me I should let that go, and I would never let that go because your roots are what keep you strong,
Yeah.
But anyway, I went on then, and I was quite bright and all of that, and I was in school, and there was an incident in school, actually a school I now work in, believe it or not, after all these years. So 38 years ago, there was an incident in school that changed the trajectory of my life, and we can all look back at moments like that in our lives, Yeah. And instead of following the route that people expected of me, the whole academic route, because I was bright, I said, no, I just wanted to get married and have babies. So I went to a different school, had a bit of crack for a few years, left and got a job on my mission to get married and have babies.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. So 30 years ago last year, actually, I did get married. And believe it or not, 30 years ago yesterday, I had my first ever positive pregnancy test. And when I told my daughter this, she was like, how do you remember that? I said, because it was my dream. All I ever wanted was to get married and have babies, so it was that significant. So I suppose that's where my journey to parenthood really began, It had always been a dream, but here I was on this journey to parenthood. And I was like Johnny Five. I don't know if you ever seen the film Short Circuit, long time
I
ago.
did, yeah, the robot. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's brilliant.
input. I was pregnant, so now I had to know everything, And there was no
Yeah,
Google in those days. I literally went down to the local library and read books, and watched videos. And I had to know everything there was about being pregnant and carrying a baby and all that involved,
yeah.
And there's a few things stuck out even from then. And I'm a great believer in sloganising your strategy. 3 words is usually good, And in those days, this was 1993, 3 words stuck out for me, and those were breast is best. And that'll come back to the story in a while, But those 3 words really stuck out for me. I didn't need to know anything more other than it was best, That was enough for
Yeah.
me.
Well, straight from the mother, so.
Yeah.
Straight.
And I just, to me, that was just plain and simple. I didn't even need to know why. I just knew, But anyway, I was to learn a lot more about that in the 30 years from then to now. But the other thing that wobbled me at that time was immunisations, as they called them in those days. I had this thing way down deep inside me where I didn't like them, And it was actually one of my reasons that made me so determined to breastfeed, because I felt at least I offered my child the protection against these immunisations, But like I say, in those days, it was only a wobble. I was only 21, newly married, blah, 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 first time parent, all of the above,
Yeah.
And so that was that. So that was me on my journey to parenthood. And that took me on many twists and turns, I have 4 live, healthy children, thank God, and I don't tell their story other than from a mothering perspective. They're all adults now, they'll tell their own story. And in between my first and my second daughter, I lost 2 children. One, my first stillborn son, and following that, I had a miscarriage. And I only tell that story for context. And my wee son's story is a book in itself, but I tell it for context because on the journey to parenthood, I believe I have ticked many, many, many boxes, from one aspect or another, So I suppose I'm just validating where I'm coming from,
Yeah.
Anyway, I went on, and my youngest was born in August 2003. And I knew somehow he would be my last, and that's okay and everything else. And I had, learned a lot about parenting along the way. So then as I was rearing him, the other 3 were at school. And when my youngest was born, my other 3 children were 3, 6, and 9. And at some point, I've no doubt I'll mention the 1,000-day theory, and it just gives relevance to that space. And not that it was a contrived space, and that's just the way it happened. But anyway, I'll get back to that. So when my youngest was a baby, I was called a breastfeeding support worker in the community. I lived in a lovely community in South Armagh at the time, and I was sort of renowned for breastfeeding, which is fine by me. And there was a lot of things like Sure Start and that coming up in the area. I was getting involved in women's groups, as you do when you're rearing children. And I came across this thing called direct entry midwifery, where you could just be a midwife. You didn't have to be a nurse or anything, because I had often considered it, but I never wanted to nurse because I just didn't want to cope with sadness and the sickness,
Yeah.
But maternity was all about the babies,
Yeah,
And for me, it was always about the babies, and it still is to this day. They're the future.
Well, that's women. It's women for you in general, isn't it? It's
Well,
the babies.
well, that's how I think it is. That's how it was for me. But so I found out more about this direct entry midwifery, and thankfully, because I had went back to school in my 20s and got enough to get to entry level university, more than enough actually. I was able to get into Queen's to do my midwifery. So my children were 1, 4, 7, and 10 when I went to do my midwifery. And from being a stay-at-home mama, to a full-time university student was a bit crackers. But, it was like Moses parted the waters. Everything fell into place for me, I even
Fair play
prayed.
to your husband for supporting you. Fair play to your husband for supporting you.
Well, do you know what? That's another book in itself, you know. But listen, listen. I'm sure it wasn't an easy transition for anybody because I went from this full-time stay-at-home mom to full-time student and be a mom and a wife and all, you know. So it was a big ask, I'm sure, for anybody in my life at the time. But I had great support and. Like I say, it was like Moses parted the waters and somewhere along the line I realised I got into it because I was supposed to. You know, things started to fall into place and I realised, I suppose as I grew older and matured, life experience, I realised, you know what, there's a reason I'm here, you know?
Yeah.
And so even from the very early days as a student, I always ask questions and I know it drives people silly and I'm the opposite. I love questions. But anyway. People didn't really like my questions, you know, but I knew there was stuff to be questioned, if that makes sense, because the stuff we were reading in the books and the stuff we were seeing in front of our eyes were like two different planets, you know. Yeah. And I couldn't understand the mismatch in my naivety at the time, you know. So tiddled on for a few years, qualified and done very well and all of that. And I only ever worked in the one trust, and it was the trust I was born and reared in. And still, now I was qualified, I was still asking questions and I was getting people's backs up and I was told, oh, you wouldn't get a job, you asked too many questions, all of the above, you know. Yeah. So I went then and done a few courses, management courses, leadership or something, you know, and I done courses to be a mentor, you know, to mentor students because I loved getting students because they were telling me all the new stuff, you know. Yeah. And that wasn't enough. So I went on then to be a union rep for the Royal College of Midwives, thinking I could change things that way. You know, I was just trying to get my voice heard from my concerns, you know. Yeah. So I done all of that and still, you know, some doors open for you and they let you in a wee bit. And in my naivety, I have to say, I thought trade unionism was the way forward. I actually went into it for the right reasons, you know. I did want to help the staff and I did want to help the service. You know, my heart was that this was my dream. You know, this was my dream job and something about it wasn't right. So I wanted to try to fix it, I suppose, you know. But anyway. Yeah.
You were a while at it, like, you know, it's just a long time being at it.
Oh, it was a roller coaster. But so then in 2015, I realised even my union work wasn't having enough impact. So I embarked on a PhD journey, yet to be completed, but I'd done 5 years of it, you know, so I've learned a lot on the journey. And then in 2017, Baby P comes into my story. Now, I don't know how many people have heard or what they've heard, you know, so I don't like to repeat it over and over. But Baby P, a wee mommy came in to me in the assessment unit. I'm sure many are familiar with these things at night duty. And she hadn't felt her baby moving all day, you know, and I knew her from before and we had a chat and I was asking her what was different between yesterday and today, you know, and she told me she'd had a flu vaccine the day before and she was quite, what's the word I'm looking for, reticent maybe, you know, I knew she hadn't really felt like it, you know, so I asked her why she got it and she told me they'd rang her 3 times and she finally relented and went in and had it on the Friday and this was the Saturday. And she and I both knew before I put the monitor on, there was no heartbeat, you know. And having been through it myself is a double-edged sword. You know, it's great that you sort of know what to say, what not to say, but at the same time, you're almost reliving your own pain, you know. But anyway, everything for a reason. And I later found out that baby's death was reported on by the coroner as an unexplained stillbirth. And I thought, no, it's not unexplained. It's not unexplained. There is a potential cause. And I used the word potential cause. You know, I'm not pointing any fingers here. So my own investigation over the next couple of years made me realise that the reason the coroner could write it off as an unexplained stillbirth is because the question actually isn't asked, was this mother vaccinated? Yeah. And I realised then they wouldn't have the answer. So then I thought, wow, he doesn't have to answer because he doesn't ask the question. So with the jigs and the reels, I ended up going to the coroner. Why do you not ask this question? Was this mother vaccinated? So that question didn't go down too well either. And I had... possessions, stolen, blah blah. Sorry, what?
Was this pre-COVID? Obviously, was it pre-COVID?
This was since 2017, right up until February 2020.
Yeah.
And the reason I went to the coroner was because in February 2020, I was at the Northern Ireland Midwifery Conference. It was the first of its kind anyway, a conference in Croke Park.
Right.
And there was a lady there, and I've named her in public before, so I can name her again, Dr. Lucy Jessup. And she was promoting to this room full of health professionals about these 5 new vaccines that were coming for pregnant women. And I was quite disturbed by this news and the way she was presenting it. So at the end, I asked her, in light of all these vaccinations, tell me why then the coroner doesn't ask, was this mother vaccinated? And she answered me by saying, that's not a question for me, that's a question for the coroner. So, and she was correct. She was correct to say that. And like I said, through my own investigation, I realised the coroner hadn't had to answer that question because the question hadn't been asked. Do you know what I'm saying? It's what I have realised through my research is it's how you construct the question. And so many questions are not being constructed properly, and this is why people haven't had the answers they expected, myself included.
Bit like court, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's exactly the same. Know that you're always in a court, basically, you know?
Yeah.
So anyway, that was February 2020. So then March 2020 came, and I knew from the outset of I knew from the Friday the 13th of March, actually, 2020, I knew something wasn't right about this. What everyone was talking about, you know, and they were turning maternity services on its head in light of no new evidence whatsoever. And I was like, oh, come on, what are you doing here, you know? Yeah. It was just so disproportionate to the threat at that time. Remember, we're talking about March 2020. There was no documented threat at that time. In fact, the government had said COVID-19 is no longer a high consequence infectious disease. And I went to my superiors and more superiors and more everywhere I could go to with that information to try and say to them, what are you doing here? You know? So then it became about COVID, you know, and suddenly I was public enemy number 1 within the health service, it seemed, you know. Yeah. And I was like, hold on a minute. You know, for years I've been helping people writing statements, going to meetings, blah, blah, blah. How come I'm public enemy number 1 for asking a question?
Yeah.
But I realise questions trigger people. If you ask the right one,
Yeah.
You know?
Much you getting paid. That'd be a good one to ask them.
Absolutely. Well, listen, we'll tell you in the middle of my, we'll get to the trial and we'll get to that bit about getting paid. Are you happy for me to go on?
Yeah, walk away,
Yeah. So by this stage, like I say, COVID had happened. People were getting a bit antsy, blah, blah. And things were getting a bit dramatic in work, you know. Everybody seemed to want an argument, you know, myself included, I have to be honest. You know, there was all picking sides and doing all that stuff. And I moved site and everything to try to dodge the drama as such. But that led me then to the most beautiful birth ever. And it was actually my last birth that I was in attendance at in the NHS on the 2nd of April. 2020 at 05:36 a.m. I'll never forget it to the day of day. And I do have the parents' permission to tell their story, but I don't think tonight's the time, you know. But know that there was an absolutely beautiful birth. But at the end of it, I knew I had nothing left. And I went to my boss and I said, listen, I'm out of here for a while. You know, I got to look after me first.
Yeah.
And I was off work for 6 months, and that was unheard of in my entire career. And a lot had happened to me in my career. And I don't mean that from a victim perspective. I mean, there'd been a lot of events, but I suppose it's just indicative of how much I was affected by what was happening around me. And I was obviously...
Little lives you're saying, you know. It's the little lives you're saying, like that's... You know what I mean? Like, especially when you see them being lost, like the little lives being lost. That can't be good, you know?
Well, what I couldn't believe was that nobody seemed to care.
Yeah.
I was giving them evidence. And I mean, like I say, I'm a research student. I wasn't giving them Dr. Google. I was giving them, will I tell you something? This is evidence I have. I'll audit your notes for you. I offered my services at every opportunity I could. I actually wrote up a report for a higher than me staff member. And I don't get into names or positions. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. This is just the story, you know.
Yeah.
So I was still very much, even though I was off, I was still very much trying to look, can we do something here? But nobody wanted to know. And that's the bit that threw me. I thought, why don't they care? Why do they not care about saving babies' lives? Is this not what all these reports are about and everything else, you know?
Yeah.
So I towards the end of my sick leave, and I cooperated with them in all their meetings, and some of the meetings were absolutely horrific. I actually called one of them and I told them, and they were well aware of my mental health state at the time, and I told them it was the worst meeting of my life. So they knew how far through myself I was, but they kept pushing and pushing. Anyway, I said, right, I'm coming back to work. And I went back to work. And I had, around that time, I'd done a speech at Stormont, a public speech to raise my concerns because nobody else was listening to me. Nobody was listening to me in-house. And I had tried every avenue I could in-house. You know, and I knew a lot of people because of my union work. You know, I had went everywhere I could possibly go, probably more places than most people within the service could go, you know. And I'm only saying that to say this is how many doors I knocked on to try and make them aware.
Yeah.
So I went public at Stormont. So, of course, then the trust, blah, blah, blah. You're bringing the trust into disrepute. Da, da, da. That led to my suspension and ultimately to my hearing. And my hearing was on the 4th of the 3rd, 21. And I'm in love with numerology. So 4321. Anyway. And during the course of the lead up to my hearing and the hearing itself, I realised, number one, I'd done nothing wrong, nothing against my code of conduct, but they were trying to get me on employment law. And I was working with a lot of people at the time who knew a lot about common law and criminal, blah, so I had a lot of great input. So I knew on paper I could win this case.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I wasn't completely naive, So right up until the night before it, I was going for this case. And at this stage, I was presenting myself because myself and my senior union colleague had fallen out along the way. When she asked me who was representing me, her or me. I said, don't be silly, me every time, So I ended up presenting myself, and anybody in common law and all that stuff knows the value in the words there,
Yeah.
So anyway, then about 36 hours before my hearing, I was doing a bit of meditation and channeling and stuff, and sometimes messages would come through, and I got this feeling that I had to resign. And I was like, wow, I was not expecting, for this thought to come up, because all along I thought I just had to win, and they would say sorry and it would be all over. How naive I was, But
You're giving up a lot as well.
Yeah. Well, listen, this was everything. This was my career that I loved, my dream job,
Yeah.
So I went through the hearing, and there was 4 of them and one of me, and The hearing's another book in itself. It's hilarious, actually, and I do have the transcripts, and their tactics were less than honourable. We'll just leave it there for now. And like I say, I have transcripts for everything I say. But at the end of it, I said to them, I had a handwritten letter, and I said to them I wanted them to accept my resignation letter. Oh, it was on a Zoom call. They couldn't anyway. But they directed me to who I had to give the resignation letter to. And I went and I gave it to her. And I had a chat with her, and I walked out of the NHS, and that was it. And free fall. Free fall after that, it was a scary time, and I suppose the enormity of my decision evolved over time, and it cost a lot. And again, I don't say that neither from victimhood or survival mode. Listen, I believe everything happens for a reason, and it had to be, and it is, and we are where we are now. We are where we are now. This is just the story,
Yeah.
And
I wanted to ask you, sorry, before you move on, had you ever tried to warn anybody when you were in there, any of the women, if
about what?
About getting the vaccine around,
Well, I personally never ever gave or offered any women vaccines, but don't get me wrong, I've given many women and many babies, things that I wouldn't do now.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. And when, you see, mostly I worked sort of intranatally, so, when women weren't having a baby, so they were past the vaccine stage anyway for themselves.
Yeah, yeah.
It was usually about the babies. And I would hope that any lady I looked after or family I looked after would agree that I would have always done my best to be objective in my approach. I understood my employment responsibilities as such. This is what's offered, blah blah blah. But I would have always brought to the table the fact that there was an alternative narrative.
Yeah.
And it didn't always go down well with fellow colleagues, but listen, that's not my problem. And my skin got thicker as I went along,
Yeah. Yeah.
But so where was I? Yeah, so after
Sorry,
I
did
was
they push off?
no. Listen, I know this story. It's all right. I don't know a script. I don't need a script. This is my story.
Yeah.
So after that, like I say, things went into a bit of free fall. Anyway, the trust then, and I'll leave the personal stuff out of it because obviously myself and my family were affected very much at a personal level. But you know what? I'm not going there, right? We'll stick to the private or the public aspect of it.
Yeah.
So the trust then decided to write a 276-page report against me to the NMC. Now, the NMC would be the Nursing and Midwifery Council. The way if a doctor's being struck off, they send it to the GMC.
Yeah.
Right? So, General Medical Council. So, if it's a nurse or a midwife, you report it to the NMC, right?
Okay.
So, the trust that I worked for all my life, all my career, reported me to the NMC on these 5 charges. Again, I have the transcripts, but basically for bringing the trust into disrepute by going public about my concerns regarding vaccinations and pregnancy, right? Which I stand over 100%. So the NMC then came at me, blah, blah, we want to take you, da, 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 da. And initially I didn't care about the NMC because I knew, number one, I was never going to work in the NHS again. And so therefore I didn't need my PIN and my registration. But later it did become a bit of a principle thing. And I thought, no, I did not breach my code of conduct, so I'm going to prove it, just by keeping my PIN.
Yeah.
In the meantime, and I've named this woman publicly before as well, so I will. The chief nursing officer at the time, Charlotte McArdle, who has since been moved to England, chief nursing officer took it upon herself, I suppose, secondly to what the trust said to her, to write to every NHS chief executive in the whole of the UK, basically to tell them not to give me a job. I was like, wow, really?
Discrimination there, right there, isn't it?
But listen, do you know what I learned to do, Mark? I learned to take the compliment because I was obviously rocking their boat. And I'm all right with that because I had no agenda here. I had nothing to gain. In fact, I had everything to lose. So I had no agenda. What was their agenda? Why were they trying to shut me up? Why?
We know now what their big agenda is. Well, yeah.
Do you know what one of the HR people said to me during my hearing? She said to me, do you not remember who pays your wages? And I said, wow. I said, that doesn't mean I have to sell my soul. Cop yourself off.
That's a statement and a half, isn't it?
Wasn't it? Oh, listen, there were many statements and a half, but I've them all written down. Don't worry about it. For another time. So, will I go on?
Yeah, walk away, hey.
Yeah, there's more. I feel like Jimmy Cricket. There's more. Yeah. So where was it? NMC, right? So we're on the 4th of the 3rd, 21. That's when I resigned, right? So anyway, over the next few weeks, my life got a bit busy. And because I'd done this resignation speech and stuff, and listen, I done it the way I did it then. I don't know if I do it like that now, but I still stand over every word I said. But you can see I still had a lot to learn, And I say that about myself. It's no problem. So put this resignation speech out. People sort of knew who I was. I called out big names, blah, 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 all that stuff. And starting to meet all these new people. And I had my office, the office at this stage. That's the office. That's another story. So then came the 20th of March, 2021. And myself and a friend went to a wee beautiful place called Killashandra and walked into a room of what we thought were going to be nurses, midwives, whistleblowers. That was our understanding of the meeting we were going to. but it wasn't. It was, it was a room full of people that looked like sort of Del Boy characters, and a couple of women, just a couple. And they were all talking about this thing called the Constitution, which I had never heard of in my life, other than in an American context,
Yeah.
So, so my life went off on another trajectory that day, because I suddenly started to learn about this thing, this Constitution and this era and the name of the state, and all of that. And I was like,
I've been down that road myself.
Yeah. So I was suddenly learning all this new stuff and met the love of my life in the process, but we'll get back to him. We'll call him Mr. Constitution for now.
It's the Constitution.
Mr. Constitution. Love Kane, and I do name him because I have absolute permission to name him, So I started to learn all this new stuff, and I started to think, what has this got to do with me? Why do I need to know this,
Yeah.
And somewhere along the line, then I was thinking I might get back to my case, this NMC case, and I thought Mr. Constitution might be able to help me. It was one of the first questions I asked him. And funny, just on a side note, one of the first questions he asked me was a psychic. But anyway, we'll get back to that. So I thought he was going to help me with this case with the NMC, help me with a bit of the law aspects and all of that. And he did, and many other people did as well. But ultimately, at the end of the day, when it went in front of the NMC, it was me against them. And I had to present myself, if that makes sense, against this 276-page document and everything that the NMC had gathered in the meantime. So the upshot of the NMC case is, after 3 Zoom meetings and 1 face-to-face hearing and 5 barristers that's on their side, I am still live on the register, because the bottom line is I didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it's not that I want their registration, because at this stage I couldn't care less, because I see the body, the professional regulatory body, for what it is. And it means nothing to me. But my registration, I earned that professionally. And them to take that off me would say I was unprofessional, and I was not unprofessional.
But doctors, I would think, I'm being a layman here, but I would think with doctors and midwives and nurses and that, that job is to help people, help, like in your case, help babies, not to, help them along to see him upstairs or whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Meant to be there, to helping people. So, yeah, you weren't doing anything wrong, by calling them out.
Well, this was it. I wasn't making a statement of claim. I was actually just asking a question.
Yeah.
And my question was, why are you not asking, was this mother vaccinated? Because I was seeing huge numbers of miscarriage and stillbirth.
Yeah.
And that was, among other things, I mean, like the rise in infertility among young, fit, healthy people within the service in the last 10 years is almost unexplainable. But I don't believe it's unexplainable. I believe they just haven't taken all the factors in. But that's another story,
And would you say there's that, you've been at it for a long time? So would you have seen a lot of the training being changed? How they were being trained? You would have seen a lot of younger midwives coming behind you. So would you have seen it? Would you have seen that indoctrination kind of thing where they were being completely brainwashed?
Yes, I hear you. Right. Now, so remember, when I started direct entry midwifery, we were the first year into Southern Trust of that kind of training, right? Because before that, they'd all been nurses, right? Yeah. So nurses in their day, and I'm going back a bit, would have generally, went off to do their nursing at 17, qualified by 20, and that was their career for life sort of thing, right? Yeah. And this is no aspersion on nurses whatsoever. This is just the profession as a perspective, So nurses generally, the doctors would say, this patient needs this and this and this, and the nurses would go and do it, right? Yeah. Somewhere along the line, midwifery was recognised as a more autonomous profession, right? Where you're responsible for the mother and the child and da-da-da-da-da. It was a different kind of care than nursing. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right? So when we first came in as direct entry midwives, we were seen as while on paper the research would say we were a better profile because we were generally older, had life experience, many of us were mothers, blah, 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 so we had that stuff to bring to the table, whereas others were challenging it on by virtue of we weren't nurses. But when you look into the two jobs, they're two entirely different careers. Nursing and midwifery are different. It's like doctors and dentists are different,
It's like different fields within doctors, like they go off and do their own field. Like one to become a surgeon and then one to become GP.
Yes.
That sort of thing, isn't it?
Yes. So it's like a specialist subject, right?
So
with maternity, your specialist subject is mum and daddy baby. Do you know what I mean? Or certainly should be. So the first couple of years of direct anti-midwifery, we would have been described as a bit bullshit, and come on, asking questions and stuff. But that was almost beaten right out of you. I remember one of my leads at Queen saying to me, Shauna, I know it's not easy to put your head above the parapet, but you got to do it, So I listened to her and I did it, but I understood why other people didn't. Does that make sense? I understand more every day why other people didn't. Because people used to say to me, Shauna, I can't talk out like you. I says, that's fine. You don't have to. Everybody has their own role. I was given a big mouth for a reason, obviously, I have no issue with that anymore. I used to be ashamed of that, but I am who I am. And who I am here to be becomes more clear to me every day. And that's all we got to do. We've got to do what we've got to do, not what somebody else has got to do.
Yeah.
Play your own story. Play your own story. For me, this is the Kerr plan, and I am Séana Kerr for a reason. They even give me the name to go with my story,
Yeah, I was only thinking that earlier. I was going, Kerr, that sounds like Kerr, the word Kerr, yeah.
Yeah, well, can I tell you where that came from, just to give it significance, because I see my website is down, but anyway, I have somebody working on it. When I was back in 2015, I was always coming with different ideas that I thought we could help maternity. Anyway, I realised that in hospitals, in people's notes, they have what's called care plans, CARE, care plans, right?
Yeah.
And I understand what a care plan is, have you peed, have you pooed, have you fed the child, have you done this, right? But I always found them quite prescriptive, and I felt they didn't really take the individual into account, right? So I had a student at the time, and she was fantastic. She was the best student I ever had at that stage. And I told her about my dreams for a care plan, KERRPLIN, where the people devise their own care plan, and that's where you get the bespoke nature that everybody's care plan is unique to them, because everybody's needs and wants are unique to them. So that was what my PhD was bringing me towards, that conception of the Kerr plan as an entity. And 2 years ago, just last week, the office here was opened. Like I say, a great friend of mine owns this house, and I have an office, and that's where the Kerr plan began in earnest, and it's about trying to be a responsive service, if that makes sense. What the people need. Don't tell them what they need.
An individual
ask them what they need.
care plan.
Yes. So that's where careplan.com came from.
Fair play to you. I mean, if you find that the system is broken, what better way to do it is by someone who knows what they're doing and just fix it,
Well, do you know what? Everybody used to say to me, Shauna, you can't fix the system and you can't challenge the system. And you know what? I was always a stubborn pup. And don't tell me I can't, because I will, and I'll take pictures, But I'm trying not to be so rebellious about it. Listen, I'm here to do whatever it is I'm here to do. So are we all. We all have a story.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Sheila, were you trying to ask a question there?
No, I wasn't. I was just, I found that concept of an individualized care plan absolutely fantastic. As a mom of 9,
Thank you.
That's exactly the way you should go, in my opinion.
Yes. Yeah. Bespoke models of care, and even through the course of my PhD, and I mean, it took us a year even just to get to the point of asking the correct question in the correct way, but I realised that what I was researching is all becoming more and more relevant to this story, and it's how to create that bespoke platform where people can have individualised care. And I for my study, developed a matrix of care, not a hierarchy. And this is what was on the website, which has crashed. Can't believe it. But anyway, it explains that the hierarchical system creates victims. You know, it's a matrix. It's a matrix.
That's how they make their money, Sean. You know,
of course. Yeah. Telling some people that they're lesser or greater than others, that is not the case. No, every soul has a role. There is no task too great or small here.
Yeah, anyone could try anything. You know what I mean? I've done things I never thought I could do, and I just done them. And you know, of course we can.
Play to your strengths. Play to your strengths. There is no point going down a road of stuff that you can't do and beating your head off it. You know, play to your strengths.
But that's it. I've had friends in my life where, you know, they were antisocial and they didn't believe in themselves. But the one thing I used to always ask them is, well, at the end of the day, right? You learned how to walk, didn't you? You know, and you learned how to talk. You know, and you learned how to communicate. You did all that yourself. Like, yeah, you had a bit of help, but you did all that yourself. You know, so that, you know, and I kind of so that's the same jazz, like.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you. Well, can I switch angle for a minute?
Yeah, you won't get to your chat. Whatever you want to do. I want to hear your story. Whatever you want to say. Well,
first of all, like I say, when Mr. Constitution came into my life, everything changed, and I started to learn all this new stuff. And it took me a while to process it all. And I do like to process stuff. You know, I like to get to the deeper meaning of it. You know.
Yeah.
And one of the things he used to always say at the start was, you know, what's the name of the state? What's the name of the state? And as you obviously know with your channel name, the name of the state is ERA, right?
Yeah,
but I couldn't understand. I couldn't understand at the start why this was so significant. Why is this so important? I thought, sure, what about it? You know, and it was just ignorance on my part, and I completely put my hands up. But I'm a quick learner, you know, and I have total recall, so I get it. But what I have since learned from that is a podcast in itself, you know, in relation to the jurisdictional position on this island. And it is the constitutional position, not the political position. I am not a political person.
Yeah, it's the people that's going to get. I always said it's the people that's going to get us out. It's not the politicians or new parties and all of these running around the new parties. It's not parties. It's the people, because we have a constitution there.
We have, and what I go on one bit further, and I say it's narrower than the people. It's about the words. It is about the words. And this is a game of words. You know, all those cliches, the pen is mightier than the sword. Yes, it is. This is about words. And I remember when somebody asked me one day, what was it drew me to Ralph Kane? And the first thing I said was his words. Because I realised the genius that this man was, you know, and I love words. That's one of my things, words and numbers, you know.
Yeah.
And in the last year and a half, nearly 2 years now, what I have learned from him and what we have learned together has been so enlightening, you know, to those who want to know, you know, the level of detail, you know. I try to keep it simple. I do ladybird versions. That suits me best.
Yeah.
And I can say, as I'm sitting here, that there are at least 3 available jurisdictional positions on this island at this current time being run, but that the 1937 enrolled in February 1938 position is the winner, if that makes sense. It takes precedence. It's format 1. It's the top player.
If you make people understand that the language, the Irish that they learn in school and they're told is theirs, is not theirs.
It's it's higher than the language itself. It's actually the script. It is the colloquial script. It's a script that it's written in, and I believe
Can I be cheeky and ask, how did that change things for you?
How did that change things for me?
Information, how did the new constitution or the old or the precedented constitution change things for you on a positive note?
Well, it'll always be on a positive note. You know, I probably, you know, with my trade union background and blah, blah, I'm one of those people who likes to know my rights, right? So with this new position that was being introduced in my life, I realised myself as an Irish woman have rights that I didn't even know about. Does that make sense?
It certainly does. I'm a woman after your own heart. I like to know my rights too.
Yeah, and it's not about right fighting, but it's about fighting for your rights, if that makes sense. I'm not doing this for any fame or fortune or anything else. Like I say, this cost me a lot, this journey, but that's not what it's about. Everything is going to be absolutely fine, and I know that. I know that. And I believe this is part of it. We're already starting to build a new world. I quote a great man who said, never, don't wait for the British to leave Ireland. Step aside and create your own story. Stop paying attention to British law on Irish soil. On Irish soil, it's about Irish law. And Irish law is written in Cloak Gaelic. It's that simple. Yeah. It doesn't mean you have to conduct your affairs in Irish, because I know people aren't ready for that. That's okay. Yeah, that'll be learned and taught. But you can rely on the Irish law that is written in the Cloak Gaelic script. And that is the highest jurisdictional position on Irish soil.
Of course it is. It's still in the court. So, 100%.
Yeah. But you got to know how to invoke it. You got to know how to use it. And that can all be taught and learned. There are people on this island who know some of this stuff. And none better than Mr. Constitution himself, So this is there for people to learn. All they got to do is want it.
Yeah. Like I asked, you never answered my question. How does it positively influence you? Can I ask, did you lose your how would I say it, like a doctor would lose their medical license? Did you use your license to be a midwife? And when they were trying to take it from you?
Did I lose it? No, I defended it. I defended it against 5 bars.
Tell me more, yeah. I'd like to.
But she didn't do anything wrong, No, fair, she didn't do anything wrong, so I can't see why.
Oh, yeah.
They tried to get me to incriminate myself so many times. Their tactics, like I say, I had the best assistants in the country, but I had to sit there and there was 7 of them versus me in the face-to-face one, But you know what? I had no issue with it because the truth needs no defence. I wasn't there to defend myself. I was there to state my case, of which I'm certain, and I am. I am not in defence.
When you're innocent, that's what happens, you know what I mean? And when you're innocent, the truth will come out.
Yes. Yeah.
And did you do something about the fact that they had alienated you from applying for jobs, in midwifery in other establishments in terms of the public system? Was there anything done about that?
At this point, no. But remember, no response is a response, and a very powerful one at that. I spent the early months after that getting myself all annoyed and agitated and everything else. But once I learned how to remove the fear from my own life, and remove the power that they had over me, they were powerless. It doesn't matter to me that they wrote to here, there, and everywhere. Like I said, I'll take the compliment. I would never work for the NHS again unless it was cutting the tape.
I can understand that.
But it's tearing itself apart. It doesn't need me to do that. So I don't.
We have our own version down here with the HSC.
Yeah, and it's the same kind of thing. Corporate body, blah blah blah. It's all the same. Yeah. The same tactics are employed throughout corporations, if you ask me.
Séana, can you just if, say, for instance, you with your training and that, like if you were to set up a business, say, of midwives, could you do that privately, or does it have to go through? Does it have to go through that body?
Well, I have been supporting parents on the road to parenthood in a private capacity. But in the private capacity, I am Séana Kerr, right?
Yeah.
So while they know I'm a midwife, I'm not the midwife. And I know that might sound pedantic, but believe me, that matters.
Right.
Do you hear what I'm saying? So I am not using my registration to validate my position. If I'm helping anyone, I'm helping them as Séana Kerr.
Okay.
And it's back to that private, public capacity and all of that stuff. Do you know what I mean? So I have not worked in my public capacity as a midwife since I resigned, and I have no intention of.
But could you, the question I'm asking, could you say, because I mean, we need to take a lot of things away from government.
Yeah, just in terms, it doesn't necessarily have to be with the NHS to do a live home birth. Like, could you do, say, if I decided I don't want to be a part of the establishment, I don't want my child born in a hospital or to be a part of the HSE or any HSE involvement, could I come to you? Because you are qualified. At the end of the day, you've years of experience,
Yes.
and at the end of the day, you have your qualification, and I hear you when you say you're working under a personal capacity as opposed to your actual qualification. But
Yes.
if you decided to set up a business tomorrow morning and said, well, I am a midwife, I'm a qualified midwife, you can put your things on the wall like every other business. You don't have to be chartered to the NHS. You could be a private midwife that somebody could go to and say, can you come and attend my home birth, please? You don't have to be a part of the NHS, as far as I'm concerned, anyway.
Yeah, no, I hear you, and let me speak to that. That is basically what I've been doing. Like I say, I've been supporting people to the point of, now I've only ever been at one home birth in my life, and it was a free birth, and there is a difference, and I'll explain it. And it was in Dublin in September, just 2022. And this couple had been, and I won't speak their names, but I know they may be happy to, but that's up to them. They had been sent to me via contacts I'd made through since on my COVID journey, if that's what you want to call it. And I was engaged with them throughout their pregnancy. We had dinner together, we chatted, blah, blah, blah. They knew my position, I knew theirs. No doctor involvement, no hospital involvement, no nothing involvement. And they had a beautiful, live, healthy baby girl in September last year at home. Me, her and him and the baby. I wasn't even in the room when the baby was born, and that's absolutely fine. And all was well. So know that these things are already happening. But believe you me, they were brave
in the room. But could you not be in the room when the...
Oh, no, I could be. I just happened. Yeah. Oh, I could be, of course. Of course I could. Because I was in the room with Séana Kerr. And they knew that, and I knew that, and they knew the magnitude of that. And it's back to accountability. Some people just want the person in the room with the papers to be accountable. The reality is, I do not believe that child's life was in my hands. My role there was to support the mother on her journey to motherhood. That's what I believe. And
it's like it's like back in the day.
Yes.
They weren't qualified midwives. They were just women that came in from the community and helped out if a woman was in labour.
Yes,
I've read a lot of books on that. Yeah.
Yes, and it's using the phenomenological approach. Lived experience. I've had lived experience of being the mother and supporting a mother. But would you believe this wee mummy? And I know she won't mind me saying this. Was born on my first birthday as a mother.
Wow.
Right, so 10 days after I became a mother, it was my birthday, and this girl who I was there with her at her free birth was born that day. Isn't that serendipitous?
That's actually lovely.
Go on. Sorry, did I miss a question there?
No, you didn't know. Sheila, I think she was asking the question out. She finished, did you? Sheila, you have a question?
Yeah, no, I finished.
See,
this
one would talk for
your role now.
This one would talk for Ireland, Séana.
Yeah. No, listen, I can do that.
She's good skin.
I'm a bit
Sheila's good skin.
Séana, I'm a bit like yourself. I have a gift. I see it sometimes as a vice, but it's a good gift, and it has served me well, and I thank God for that gift, the power to be able to speak out.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's for me, it's children with disabilities that has conditioned me the way I am,
Yes.
and having to fight and to inform myself continuously. So yeah, power to the women.
Yes. Well, it is the time
of the Irish women.
Well, do you know what? It is the time of the rise of the divine feminine, and I think many people on any kind of spiritual journey will understand the feminine energy that's rising at this time. And this is why we're here. This is the way the women of Ireland are gathering, and that is not a feminist issue, it's a feminine issue. This is it. This is rise. This is it.
Yeah. That's it. As they say, with every good man in the country, there's always a good woman,
Absolutely.
Well, But the way things are going, and the way the state is going, we need an alternative. And it's good to hear, Shauna, that you're that. And I hope a lot more midwives go on the same journey as you are.
Thank you. Listen, it doesn't have to be midwives, and I don't mean that as any disrespect to midwives.
No, I 100% every context.
Yeah, women support women during childbirth, and that is how it is, and that is okay. That does not mean daddies have to be shut out, but it is women who help women bring their babies into this world. That is okay.
And I tell you, I'm finished having kids, but like if anyone stopped me from seeing my children being born, they'd have something to. You know what I mean?
Well, that's what I'm saying, Mark. I'm not speaking to the exclusion of men. What I'm saying is,
no, I know what I know you're not. I know.
Yeah, you don't have to be medically qualified to support women into the world. When you've had your own child, number one, that's phenomenology. That is phenomenal. Literally, listen to the words.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing.
And once you've had your own child, you can empathise with another woman having a child. It's the same as I understand my own obstetric history. Like I had an instrumental delivery. I had my only normal delivery was my stillborn son. I had a miscarriage. I had sections, blah, 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 blah. And I realised that everything that happened to me was to help me to understand the women who I would be caring for. Does that make sense? Because every one of us have a life path, and all our life paths suddenly start to make sense when we start to awaken to it, and you realize why all these things happen to you, and then you don't fall victim to it anymore, and you understand it better, and you learn from it rather than falling victim to it, And I'm not minimizing anybody's pain, because I can do pain, I've done pain, but listen, it is what it is. Here we are. Let's go forward and build the world we want to have.
What would you say to women that like get that depression or the postnatal depression? Is that what's called?
Or even prenatal depression, or
prenatal. Sorry, prenatal. Yeah. What would you say to the women?
Well, I would say come and talk to me first, and then I realise over my career and whatever that postnatal wards were getting more and more like PTSD wards every day. These women were traumatized by childbirth, and childbirth need not be a traumatizing event. It's actually an amazing event. Imagine being picked to bring a child into this world. It's such a monumentous event in your life, and people have been filled with fear, and that's what it is. That's what it is. That's what the services run on, fear. The reliance on people's fear. Birth is not to be feared. Birth is to be embraced. Oh my God, how lucky are you to be bringing a human being into this world? What a blessing that is.
Yeah, I've seen all my children being born, and it's just, once you see the forest, it's just like, it does something to you. I'm just talking from a man's perspective. It's obviously different for a woman, but
of course,
you do all the work. But
just a little.
It's amazing.
Yeah, but a mother, father, child.
It's a privilege. It's a privilege to be able to bring human beings, our legacy, the next generation into the world. And like I say, I have a lot of children, and each and every single one of them, down to my very last, has been an absolute and utter privilege. I feel that I am honoured. God obviously thought something of me to give me so many blessings.
Absolutely. Yes. Well, when I was growing up, I always had this figure of 6 in my head. That's how many children I wanted, And I did have 6 pregnancies, and I'm very grateful for every one of them. And every one of them has taught me so much.
Yeah.
And still to teach me to this day, We are here to learn from our children, People minimize young people and the impact they have. They are the future.
Well,
we learn from them, and they learn from us. It cuts both ways. It
certainly does.
It changes when you become a parent. Yeah, it changes when you become a parent.
And it should, Mark. It should. That is okay. It should actually change you becoming a parent, because I don't know if you ever heard of the concept of transactional analysis, where within every one of us, is parent, adult, child, or whatever, and becoming a parent is a huge responsibility. It is actually the most important job on this earth, is to mother or to father.
Yeah. And
Yes,
they're trying to take that away.
100%.
Right? And listen,
Yeah, exactly.
the delusion, and this is why I realised my own journey and how relevant it all is to itself. Because my final PhD question became, can the co-creation of a bespoke sonic environment impact positively on the relationship between mother, father, child? And my answer, which is the best PhD answer you can get, is one word: yes. And I am aware that when I say that, I have to prove it. And believe me, I can prove it. I can prove it. Because the 1,000-day theory, which is what most of my research is based upon, is absolutely real. From conception to 3-year-old, you're hardwiring the motherboard of the next generation. And if you fill that with love, then you have a generation full of well-heeled and beautiful people. It literally, one generation changes it all. Changes it all.
Literally, yeah. Yeah, it does.
And it started. It has already started. It has already started. So don't be worrying about what people are telling you. Listen, and I'm not minimizing people's worries, but my wee daddy used to say, God bless him, don't worry about something till it happens, because you only worry twice. And if you follow that one simple rule, you never worry in your life, because when something happens, you act. You don't worry. So let it be. Whatever's happening outside of you, let it be, and let's get on with doing what we're here to do.
What would you say to the lunatics out there that are saying like, a child like up to 1 is not a human, or like you know, I don't,
up to birth, you know. Yeah, up to birth.
I would probably say, may God forgive you, for you know not what you do.
Yeah,
exactly.
You know, and listen, not everybody will learn in this lifetime, but that's not on us. As individuals, sovereign people, it is on each and every one of us to learn what we are here to learn. Nobody's coming to save you, in my opinion. We got to save ourselves. It comes from within. Every answer you ever need is within yourself.
I believe that. 100%.
Actually, I disagree. The good Lord in heaven is coming to save us, and He already has.
Yes, but He's in each and every one of us. He's in each and every one of us.
Certainly
without and within, I hear you. Absolutely. Absolutely. Within and without. Omnipresent, isn't this what they say?
Well, He's given us free will to do these things. He's given us free will to make choices. Yeah. So we have to make the choices, Sheila.
So we learn. So that we learn. And every choice. Go on.
How we meant to learn if we don't, like, if we don't have them, you know, them experiences?
Well, I'm going to quote Rolf's mama, and she always says, "It's through mistakes we learn." And that's it. That's why don't interrupt anybody when they're making a mistake. Let them make it, because they've something to learn from it. And my wee mommy and daddy, God rest them both, the way they parented us was they would give you the advice and they would tell you what was right to be told, and see after that, on your own head be it.
Yeah.
On your own head be it. And I believe awareness is the cure. Once you are made aware that you're cured, it's on you. And if you go ahead after that and make the mistake, well, on your own head be it.
That's true. Do you want to take a couple of questions, Sean, or?
I'm fine with whatever way you want to do it.
Or do you want, have you more to say, like, or?
Listen, as I said,
have you got another couple of books there for us?
the chairperson came back to me at the end of the NMC here, and she says to me something along the lines of, have you anything else to say? And I says to her, listen, know this, every time you come back to me, I will have something else to say. She didn't come back to me anymore. In fact, she demanded the recording be turned off. It was crazy. But anyway, some other time. That's another book. Go on.
Yeah, another book. Yeah. So, folks, if you have any questions, just put your hands up. We'll just keep talking here. Anyway, but if you have any questions, and do you
want me to try and put the constitutional issue in a nutshell?
Yeah, but whatever you're talking about, right? Yeah, we'll go ahead. Yeah.
Right, so this is my understanding of it from my learning. Right, so in 1937 there was the 63-article constitution written in Clo Gaelic and Sax Berla, and it was enrolled in 1938, and the signatories were the Taoiseach, the Chief Justice, and the Ceann Comhairle, right? So we'll call that Format 1. And Format 1 can only be usurped by Format 1. Does that make sense? Yes, no?
Kind of, yeah.
Right, it'll make more sense in a minute. So in 1942, there was a 50-article constitution enrolled, right? Albeit 12 articles out of the other 13 were still in operation. That we'll get into that some other time. And it was enrolled in Clo Gaelic and Sax Berla, but the signatories this time were the President, the Taoiseach, and the Chief Justice, right? So no Ceann Comhairle this time, right? So we'll call this format 2 because it was enrolled under Article, I think, 25 format, whereas the one in 1937 was enrolled under the Article 63 format. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but the first one was also voted on by the people. The second one wasn't. It's done wartime.
Yes, and I hear your
point.
When
you say there's no Ceann Comhairle, why was there no Ceann Comhairle on the second occasion?
Well, right. So what was mandated by the Constitution was you had to have someone from 3 jurisdictions: the legislative, the executive, and the judicial, right? So with the Taoiseach, the Chief Justice, and the Ceann Comhairle, that them 3 areas covered, and with the President, the Taoiseach, and the Chief Justice, they still had those 3 areas covered, right? So, but that's not my point. My point actually is that because they changed the format, it is lesser, right? And just hear me out for a wee minute. This is easier on a whiteboard. But anyway, so in 1942, they enrolled it under format 2, we'll call it, right? So in 1980, it was re-enrolled format 2, so that usurped the first format 2, then 1990, and then 1999. So by 1999, you had now 3 subsequent enrolments to that which was enrolled in 1942 under format 2. Does that make sense?
Kind of.
But they still did not usurp format 1. So actually registered in the Office of the Supreme Court, you had format 1, 63 articles, Clo Gaelic and Sax Berla, and format 2, 50 articles, albeit 62 still operational, in Clo Gaelic and Sax Berla. So you had actually 2 constitutional jurisdictional positions enrolled in the Office of the Supreme Court by 1999. Are you with me?
And were they running? Yeah, were they running side by side?
Yeah, parallel. And it was down to whether or not you knew how to invoke jurisdiction number 1. Because if you were, it might not matter to most people, but if you were in a court of law and they were invoking jurisdiction number 2, if you invoke jurisdiction number 1, then you win. Because jurisdiction number 1 is Irish law for Irish people and Irish soil. Do you hear what I'm saying? Whereas format 2 had a bit more of the Anglo-Irish in it.
Yeah, the common good. This book, common good bullshit.
Yeah. So by format 2, you were riding 2 horses. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So this is where the common good starts, or the ideology of the common good.
Yes, and it looks on paper, it all looks nice and pretty and everything else, but it's not. Anyway. So at the minute we're in 1999, and you have enrolled in the Office of the Supreme Court. Format 1 as enrolled in 1938 and format 2 as enrolled in 1989, right? Now, 1998 was significant for this island because we had the whole Article 2 and 3 debate, which I knew nothing about at the time, by the way. I wasn't interested. I was having babies and all. It didn't matter to me, right? But I know now. So the Article 2 and 3 debate was going on in 1998 and the Good Friday Agreement cemented the position, blah, 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 right? But in 1999, at the re-enrollment of the Format 2 Constitution, the original Article 2 and 3 were enrolled.
Yeah.
Right? Now, know that anything I say I can prove, right? So
that's 17. Sorry, Sean. So that's that'd be what, 17 now enrolled?
17. What do you mean 17?
Well, the 2 with the let's see, hold on, 15.
Like an adult.
The 13 and the 2, 15 enrolled. Because the 13 that they took out of the second time, but still enrolled.
Yes, sorry, 12. Well, you see, the 13 articles that they removed to create the Article 50 version as such, that was allowed for and provided for in the Article 63 Constitution, right? But Article 51 became obsolete after 3 years or something, right? So you'd only 12, right? So you're on a 62 article Constitution by 1999, 50 enrolled, but 62 still in force. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, no, you said they added another 3 to it. So with the ones they took out, but it's still enrolled, and then they added another 3 that are enrolled. So that's what I was asking. Are they all together now? So do we have 15? Is it 15? That's probably enrolled.
No. In 1938, when the 1937 Constitution of the Republic of Éire was enrolled, it was in full 63 article enrolment, right?
Yeah, Clough Gaelic, yeah.
And Clough Gaelic and Sax Berla, right?
Yeah.
Which in itself, by the way, creates 2 jurisdictions. But we'll get to that, right?
Yeah.
So in 1942, the 50 article Constitution was enrolled, albeit 62 articles were still in full force.
Yeah, okay.
Right? Although only 50 were enrolled, but that was allowed for in the 37, right? Because it seems we're always creating loopholes, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Just confuses, yeah.
So we're at 1999, and it seems the enrolment in 1999 did not reflect the removal of Articles 2 and 3. Right?
I get you now, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because as a constitutional position, that would be repugnant to itself.
Yeah.
Do you hear what I'm saying?
Yeah. Goes against it, yeah.
Right? Now, and listen, I could talk for another hour about that part, but I'm not going to keep this one just skeleton version, right? So, roll on 20 years, because it was 20 years before the next enrolment. Now, right? Even though they can enroll it whenever they want, there is provision for re-enrollments whenever they want, right? And remember that anything that is agreed at referenda or whatever does not come into full force until it is constitutionally enrolled, right? So all the referenda that occurred between 1999 and 2019 could not even begin to come into force until they were constitutionally enrolled, right? Now, in that 20-year gap, are you still with me?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Kind of.
So in that 20-year gap, they had things like referenda on courts of appeal, on abortion, on same-sex marriage,
divorce,
blah, blah, blah.
Divorce.
But remember that none of
Lisbon agreements, Nice agreements, all of that. Going into Europe was probably fraud, yeah.
But none of those came into force until they are constitutionally enrolled, which I actually don't believe they have been yet, because the enrolment of 2019 was not in Clough Gaelic and was not in Sax Berla. It was in English and Irish. And that is different.
Yeah.
They've changed the script. And in doing that, they have lessened the constitutional position to a point where I believe it's not even constitutional. So their purported constitutional position is unconstitutional, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. It makes sense to me.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, like I say, it's easier on a whiteboard. This is quite, it's easier on a whiteboard. Yeah,
you must get a whiteboard for the chat.
Listen, I am the queen of the whiteboard.
You should actually do the video
everywhere.
You should actually do a video on it and put in the whiteboard.
Yeah,
and because you're able to explain it a lot better now, to be fair, than what I've understood so far.
Yes. Thank you. It's my ladybird version, But believe me, I've had the best tutelage on the island,
Right, we'll.
Can I ask Séana a question, please?
Yeah, walk away. Who's this?
Yeah, Séana. I missed most of the conversation. I didn't know you were on, but can I just ask, really, just a quick question? Why was there a need to do the second format in 1942? Why were they not happy with this 38, the first format? Why did they feel the need to make another one?
I hear you, and I'm with you, because the 1937 Constitution actually protects all those Irish people born in Irish soil, But listen, the British weren't going to be happy with that. Don't be silly. And I don't mean that patronising. This is the British input here. This was the British trying to ensure that their law still was being upheld on this land, because
applied, yeah.
They still had claimed some sort of jurisdictional position with the whole Crown Act and all that. I don't get into that stuff.
Yeah, but how did they put that across during those days? During that time in 1942, what was the talk? What was the talk about? How did they snare the people? How did they hoodwink the people? And you know what I'm going to tell you? That's a fantastic question. And it would be better to be asked of the people at that time. But given that I'm a person of this time and I've seen how the people have been hoodwinked now, I would suggest it wasn't that bloody difficult. Excuse my language.
It's called misdirection, because people used to say to me,
without social media or media input, they were able to do a lot of things under the cuff.
Of course,
everybody knowing.
Of course.
Well, the newspapers, Sheila. You know, I mean, the newspapers were big back then. And just because we don't read newspapers now doesn't mean they were never big. They were massive back then.
But remember, the newspapers would have been controlled at a certain point as well back then too. It's like mainstream media now, you know. And unless you were in the know or involved in the decision making directly, you wouldn't have known about it. This would have been done under hush hush, you know, don't talk about it, you know. And only the important people who are in the know. That's what I would have imagined would have happened.
Yes, I hear you, but know this, I believe anyway. Media is the weapon of mass destruction. Media is the tool they have used, the propaganda war, blah, 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 you know. But anything they use, just use it back and flip it back. If they can do it one way, we can do it the other way. You know, we'll not fall victim to what has been done to us in the past. We'll just go forward and create solutions.
Yeah, that's it. Be people and start doing things for ourselves.
Yes, be sovereign. Be sovereign. Yeah. I remember during my investigation at the Trust, and I was only, like I say, coming around to this stuff myself, and I used the word sovereign in a sentence when talking about myself. And the head of midwifery just looked at me and she was like, I've never heard anybody saying that in a sentence before. And I thought, neither have I. But it felt right in the moment. And I was only starting to really understand what sovereignty meant, because sovereignty is a state of mind. Nobody gives you your sovereignty. You either are or you aren't. It's that simple.
Yeah, it's like a suit. You just put it on and just
yeah. And it cuts both ways. Believe me, it cuts both ways. You know.
We've just forgotten who we are, Shawnee. You know.
Exactly, and we're here to remember. There seems the whole planet got amnesia there for a while. And listen, I understand there was huge mitigation. We as a people have been under attack for a very long time.
Thousands of years. Yeah,
thousands. Yeah. And it's time we stopped falling victim to it and said, right, you know what? This shit stops here. Excuse my language. It stops here.
Stops with us. Stops here. With us. Has to.
This is why we are here.
We can't put our people through another 100 years of this. There's no way.
Another 100 days.
Yeah.
Actually, what's your thoughts on the whole uniting Ireland now with Northern Ireland in terms of demolishing the last shred of even the Take Two version of the Constitution? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, Bunrock already does that, Sheila. Bunrock is the 32 counties.
Yes, and that is a
but under, say, right, I understand under that, but what do you think that the government are trying to achieve with this whole United Ireland, even under the second constitution? I know we're not to have the other side of things sorted out, like in terms of the original constitution, but in terms of what the hell they're working with now.
Right, you know? I have a theory on that. If I have a theory on that.
I would. I'd love to hear theories on
it. And like I say, I have a great teacher, remember. So remember this, number one, what's the name of the state? The name of the state is ERA. And ERA is a 32-county sovereign independent democratic state, right? So that is a position, number one, that is available to Irish people on Irish soil, right? So that's Sinead, that's it, right? Northern Ireland, as you call it, is a political jurisdiction, not a constitutional position. Not a constitutional position, right? It's a political jurisdiction and therefore lesser than a constitutional position. And don't get me wrong, I understand that people have lived under it for many years. I myself have lived in this part of the island all my life. But it is a political, gerrymandered jurisdiction with an agenda, as we can all, listen, we're all open to agendas at this stage, and understand that the agenda was, as usual, divide and conquer. They made it about Protestants and Catholics, they made it about North and South, they made it about East and West and Belfast. It is just divide and conquer. What they're trying to do at the minute, I believe, is if they get a 32-county mandate, then they can technically usurp Format 1, if they sign it in the correct way, and then bring Ireland, the corporate state, back under the crown, which is within their gift, but it's not going to happen.
No, it won't be the Crown. It'll be the EU they bring it under, or the US.
I was just about to say, the
that's
EU.
the bigger Crown. ERA is not in Europe. ERA is not in Europe.
We're not, but in Ireland on our own. Yeah.
Yeah, Ireland is in Europe. ERA is not in Europe.
Yeah, it was never signed up.
About the Northern Ireland position, a lot of people have pulled this one lately too. What I try to remind people, what was taught to me as well, I like I say, I was born and reared in the 6 counties and I have an Irish passport. So that in itself proves the continued jurisdiction of a 32 county jurisdiction. Because if I was born and reared in the north, how come I can have an Irish passport? Better than that, a former president of this country was born and reared in the north of Ireland. I worked with her sister for years. So she's entitled to be president. Isn't everybody born in the north? But that again proves a continued 32 county jurisdictional position. Who else would give you your passport? Look at your coins. ERA is the name of the state, and that is a 32.
I've always seen the North as part of Ireland.
Northern Ireland. Yeah, but you can get an Irish and you can get a Northern Irish passport.
There is no such
thing. No, that doesn't exist, Sheila. That doesn't exist. No, Northern Irish doesn't exist.
It's a political state. That is a
sorry.
It's British. It's British or Irish passport. It's not a Northern Ireland passport.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
I stand corrected.
Anyhow. Yeah.
That's you know what that is. That was brought in. That word was brought in when they were doing a census up the north. They were like Northern Irish. You know this bollocks.
Yeah.
Bullshit. Yeah.
But I believe that the way forward here is to bring the correct constitutional argument to the correct constitutional court, which will then open the floodgates for all
but which correct constitutional court do we have here in Ireland?
We have the Supreme Court. As mandated by the 1930s.
I know, but is it not bought and paid for like the fucking High Court and everything?
Well, you don't have a license
in Ireland.
Not if you don't actually have a license.
Go on.
Apparently none of the courts have a license.
There are Crown courts operating all across the island, believe you me. But when you know how to invoke the correct jurisdictional position, and I know a man who can, well, then you get yourself in the correct court. You set your jurisdiction. You find out what game's being played, what balls they're playing with, and what court they're playing on. You set your jurisdictional position when you know what you're doing. And you rely on the Clo Gaelic Irish law.
Yeah. That's it. We are Irish after all.
Everybody doesn't have to do that. Only the people who that's their field have to do that. This is what I've been trying to say to people. You know, don't worry about what everybody else is doing. Find out what it is you're supposed to be doing and do it. And leave other stuff to other people. I go to the serenity prayer for discernment. You know, God grant me the serenity.
Actually,
to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And if there's something I can do, I will. And if I can't, then I let it go.
Yeah.
That's somebody else's job, not mine.
That's
actually very good, man. That's a very, very, very good piece of information there. That is brilliant.
Thank you.
Do you know what that is, Sean? That's someone that's someone thinking for themselves. I mean, we need to start thinking for ourselves. You know, that's the way it is. I mean, we've allowed mommy and daddy to destroy this country on us, and they're going to keep destroying it if we allow mommy and daddy to keep going. You know. They're not mommy and daddy. They're just ordinary people like us, but you just have a bit more money, got a bit more swagger, got probably a tiny bit, I wouldn't even say education, but, you know, got a couple of PhDs behind them, and they think that they're better than everyone else. And that's a lot of me crap. You know what I
mean? Yeah. No, I hear you.
We're all keeping in mind that he used to always say, if you can read, you can cook. You know? So if another person can do it, you can do it too.
That's it. I started gardening last year. I didn't even think I could garden for the life of me because I'm a city boy. You know what I mean? I'm not a farmer or whatever. And I've grown tomatoes, peas, I've grown cabbages, lettuce. I know different versions, how to do it, how to germinate them. You know what I mean? How to take seeds. Like that's all from just in my head. You know?
Really? Well, listen, I've been hairdressing and everything. I've been learning.
Me boys read the hairdressing. Gee, that's a stint. Big jump.
But you know what I'm going to tell you about hairdressers? And I say this because I have one of the best hairdressers on the island. She washes your hair better than anybody. See, hairdressers, you always come out of there, well, for the most part, feeling better.
Yeah,
and see, during lockdowns and all that nonsense and everything else that was going on, what do people miss the most? They're hairdressers. But yet, all the tell young ones in school, you'll end up like a hairdresser, and minimise a career that everybody depends on.
Yeah, females definitely for use women.
Definitely for females, but not only that. If you go in, and I went in one time, and my wee hairdresser, God bless her, she washed my hair herself, and it was like therapy. And she was just washing my hair, but it was just somebody caring about you. It's care.
Yeah.
It's a care plan. It is literally just somebody giving a shit.
Look, God just wanted us to go out there and love each other and love the earth, and that's what. But we failed. We failed.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, do you know what?
We have not failed.
Move forward. Sorry, what?
We have not failed.
No, we haven't. We're learning.
On a personal level, yeah. I believe I meet people at their own place. I meet them on the street, meet them at their place, meet them at their place of business, talk to them. We have not lost yet. I don't believe that for even a millisecond. No. I believe in humanity. I believe in God and humanity.
Yeah.
We did.
We're not. I think that we're finding our feet. That's what we're doing.
Well, now we are. I'd say, okay, yeah, I agree with you now, because with everything that's happening now. Yeah.
Can I say something, Mark?
They're angry.
Can I say something, Mark, just about feeling and falling, all those things?
Yeah.
I am a great believer in the energy of words and letters and all that stuff. And the only one thing that triggered me about doing this was because the channel was called Era is Falling, right? Now hear me out.
Yeah.
Because I believe in spellcasting, right? And when I first came across it on this journey, it was when I realised the enormity of Chucky Arla, right?
Yeah.
Now, Chucky Arla is a future tense promise.
Yeah, our day will come, yeah.
I will come. But she could say that every day for the rest of your life and it's still not here, right?
Yeah.
Ta, Arla, and Cha. Our day is here. Our day is here, right?
Yeah.
So when we speak, we spell. That's what abracadabra actually means. When we speak, we spell, right? So Era is Falling is actually a negative spell cast. Do you know what I'm saying? And this is when I
said it. No, I said it. I meant it in a way like Ireland, right? Everyone thinks this is Ireland, right? It's Era, right? So by them thinking that it's Ireland and keep thinking that it's Ireland, Era is falling. Do you know what I mean? That's what I meant by that.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And that's sort of from a problem perspective. So the switch of one letter changes the complete energy in the words, because Era is calling. And if you want, I'll read you a poem that I wrote one time about Era is calling. I'll read it out to you. I suppose not just to prove my point, but to validate my point if you want.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Okay. I can do it from memory anyway. I was going to look on my phone, but I can do it from memory, right? Nor meekly did he serve his time, no task too great or small. He served his soul with fortitude to answer Ireland's call. She called for strength in brotherhood, men standing side by side. Don't lay down in dishonour, stand with dignity and pride. Face thine enemy with boldness, know that hope should never die. For there are no forces to exist that a free man can't defy. Know that freedom is a state of mind, each man his own revolution. We shall wear no convict's uniform, because we are the solution. Sinead, that is what I believe. We are here for this.
That's very nice. I love that. I say my writer myself, so I really like that. Yeah, it's nice.
I love poetry. My daddy was a poet. He taught me stuff that no man on this earth ever taught me. My daddy.
Look, that's what the Éireannach are. We're artists. We're dreamers. We're musicians. We're writers. We write about life. We just want to love everybody. That's why the Éireannach are loved all around the world. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And we've forgotten that.
My family, the Kerr clan. You talk about the Kerr clan. I have another wee story running the Kerr clan. My family and my ancestry is so beautiful. And even the current generation, the music in my family, the musicians in my family put me to shame. But I do play one thing. I play the bodhrán. And I realise
the bodhrán. I love the bodhrán, yeah. I have a bodhrán.
I'm rhythmic and I'm a dancer. Yeah. And can I tell you one interesting fact about me? Because I remember the first day we went to Queen's to do our midwifery, and the teacher said this: tell me one thing about you that nobody else can say, right? So I'm going to tell you one thing about me that nobody else can say, I believe. I won an All-Ireland line dancing title when I was 7 months pregnant. That's one of my things.
Yeah.
So anyway, and I'm bringing line dancing back. I'm telling you, you have no idea what you're missing. But anyway.
No, you want to bring the Irish dancing back. No, forget that line dancing.
Well, listen, it can just get on the dance floor and stop being afraid to be the first person on the dance floor. There's nothing wrong with being the first person on.
Look, I used to get thrown out of nightclubs because I was dancing too much. So you're talking to the converted here. Folks, if any of you's got questions, I don't see anyone with my hands up. If you have a question, just don't be afraid to put your hands up.
Yeah.
But yes, it's crazy.
Can I tell you another wee story? Just wait, listen.
Yeah, Sean, walk away. Yeah.
If nobody has questions, right?
Paul, we have a question, but
okay, go on ahead.
Do you want to take the question, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Hold on. Paul, you're live there. Shauna.
Well, John, how are you going?
Hello, Paul. How are you?
All dead on. Shauna, you were talking about the Constitution through the courts there.
Yes.
Judicial reviews and stuff like that there. What way does that work, and what way does the Constitution sit up here in the north of Ireland? Or up here, like what way does that sit? Can we bring that into a court up here, or does it have to be down in the Supreme Court in Dublin?
Right, I hear
or
you,
Wexford,
Paul.
or wherever.
And I'll try to answer it as best I can. I know there are people, and many people, who've been doing a lot of work on this stuff, Paul, and bringing arguments to courts and everything else, and on different articles of the Constitution, and they've all got very valid positions and everything else. It is my belief, and I'm only speaking for myself here, that the Constitution in its entirety is what needs to be brought to the Supreme Court, the correct Supreme Court, and that will be done. In the meantime, the President and a few others have also been served with a statute declaration that myself and himself co-created. So they're very aware that this is coming. And the beauty of a statute declaration is because of the weight of what you're signing to, it's submissible in court and further subsequent court proceedings, So know that there's work going on, Paul. And that, yes, the jurisdictional position of the whole island basically, yes, does operate over the whole island, but having been in the courts in Belfast recently myself, I believe those are specifically Crown buildings, so I'm not sure that it would apply in a Crown building. But we don't need Crown buildings. That's sitting under British law. We're Irish people on Irish soil, so we sit under Irish law. So we find the Supreme Court that is mandated in the Constitution, and that's where we take the argument to, I believe.
I wouldn't say, though, that they're Crown buildings, but they're definitely running they're renting or something from us.
Yes, yes, they're renting off that because they are trespassers on the land.
Yeah,
but there's
trading and they're renting, so they're like renting a shop.
There's no doubt there are Crown buildings on this island, and not only that, there are Crown operators. Irish men, and because people say to me, I've had conversations with people and they say about getting the Brits out and da da da. I says, listen, it's not the British people that are on this land running British law. Sadly, it's Irish men and women operating British law on Irish land. For the most part.
Well, if we go back, If we go back far enough, because I've been doing a lot of reading for the past year on stuff like Irish history and real Irish history, and apparently we populated that island. We populated it. That's what's coming out now. So they're their people.
What island? Sorry, I did.
The British Isles. We repopulated them.
Yeah.
That's what they're saying now. So from what I've been reading, that it came from us. It came from this little island or whatever. So
listen, the crown lost its power after Brexit, Mark.
Yeah.
And I've said this before. To some people, from what I've learned, a very wise man taught me and showed me that the Queen never wore her imperial crown since after the Brexit result.
Yeah, I know that myself. Yeah.
Yes, and the reason being because a monarchy and a republic can't coexist, and the fact that they acted on the vote of the people basically disempowered the monarchy. Right now, it didn't completely eradicate the crown, because the crown is an entity in itself, and you have crown acts and all that stuff. But it removed her right to be able to wear it on her head.
Yeah, but the monarchy is not actually her. It's just the business that's.
Yes, it's the entity, and the crown is the entity. But she was no longer then able to wear the crown because the jurisdictional position had shifted, right? And this is also why Charlie Boy will never, in my belief, be truly coronated as King Charles III, because he's King Charles in his private capacity because he's the son of a queen, but his public capacity, King Charles III, number one, he hasn't been crowned yet. Number two, I don't believe he ever will be. Do you hear what I'm saying? Because they don't have that position anymore. The monarchy's over, I believe.
So with no sitting king there, I mean, this leaves it open for us to take back our island, doesn't it?
Yes, but if there's a 32 county position created under Ireland, which is the corporate, that would be their loophole to give the crown jurisdiction over the entire island as a dominion. And I stand correct. The only person who could correct me on that is Ralph, and I believe I've said it correctly.
Yeah, no, it makes sense.
He's the man for the ins and outs of this. I'm just the headlines.
It's the headlines.
I like.
You're just another book. You're just another book in the waiting.
No, I love coveralls. I have listen. Sloganize your strategy. If you're going to have a strategy, sloganize it, and then people will do it. So or people will understand it easier. So when I get a wee phrase like "awareness is the cure," that's a book in itself. But it is enough for many just to know that awareness is the cure. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
not everybody wants to read the whole book, and that is okay. You just read the books you're interested in. Not everybody has to throw their everything behind the Constitution. Not everybody has to throw their everything behind the NHS or the church or the education, whatever. Horses for courses. We're all here to do our job. Well, just get on with it.
Yeah, but the Constitution is law. People, I don't know what pisses me off when people keep calling it. You keep calling it political. I'm not going. It's not political. It's law.
It's the constitutional position, which it trumps any political jurisdiction.
Yeah.
If you've got the main player, if you want the best joypad in the game, if you're a gamer, you want the best joypad. Well, believe me, the 1937 Constitution is the best joypad you're going to get as an Irish man or woman. Do you know what I'm saying? So why would you go in with any lesser? Why would you go in with position number 2 or 3? When you can use position 1, don't be silly. Pole position.
In our ancient text, that's thousands of years old. And also, like from me reading, I've also found that they reckon a lot of languages in Europe derives from Clo Gaelic. So
absolutely. I actually believe that we are the key to all of this. I'll get into that some other time, maybe in a private session, but we are the key. All we have to do is work all of this out. We're all here. It's like code breaking, that. How do you break a matrix? You crack the codes. You've seen it in the films. It's listen, we're here for this. Enjoy the
amazing time to be alive. That's for sure.
Amazing time to be alive. Embrace it and see it for the opportunity that it is. We are going to be in the history books. People are going to talk about this time for a very, very, very long time. So let's make it count,
That's it. Let's rise.
Anyway.
Has anyone got questions now? No questions.
Well, can I tell you one last thing before we go then, Mark?
Yeah.
Because
Well,
I
look, you
think
know what, Sean, I do open up the chat and I let everybody in for the last hour. So if you want to hold on, you can. Like, you're more welcome.
yeah,
But,
that's fine. I'll just mute myself and listen, you know.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I want to tell you something that I've witnessed in the turn of the new year. I was in a wee bar in South Armagh, a village. Apparently one of the oldest villages in the country, right? And bars haven't been very popular the last couple of years. You know, you're trying to get a bit of life back into them again, you know.
Yeah.
And it was New Year's Eve, and it was really quiet. There was a couple of people came in and out, all beautiful, lovely people, and all of that. But then at about 10:30, these young ones started to come in, right? And you know when most people get a bit antsy when there's a load of young ones about? Well, once they realised they were going to get served, when they showed their passports and they were behaving themselves, they rang all their friends. And the next thing, the bar was full of young people. I would say 18 to 22-ish age group wise. And they played pool and they were jiving and they were singing and they were courting and they cleaned up their mess after them. And when they were asked to leave, they left. And I have to say, it was beautiful to see the young people of South Armagh out celebrating the new year in a way they maybe never did before. And I think it's time people remember to celebrate the young people because they are the future. You know, we're just here to pave the way for them. You know.
Well, that's it. We're just borrowing what we have from them, you know?
Yes, absolutely. You know.
But, yeah. Well, I'd like to thank you so much for coming on. Like,
you're very welcome. You're very welcome.
And you're welcome to come on anytime you want. Like, you know, if there's something you want to say, I believe you must have a couple of other books there hidden under the stairs that you want to.
I've quite a few.
But, yeah, thank you, Sean, and I really appreciate you coming on. And maybe I'll see you around in the future.
Maybe sooner than you think.
Yeah, well, that's it.
You know.
Folks, I'm just going to open up the chat now. If everyone wants to come in and just chat among yourselves, more than welcome to.
Well, thank you very much, Mark. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem, Sean. No problem. Like I said, and I mean it, anytime you want to come on, just, you know, give me a holler. That's what we're all about. We all want to, you know, just we want to find solutions about this mess that we're in, you know.
Absolutely. And listen, wipe the slate clean. We all know how we got here. It's time to move forward and bring the solutions to the table. There's no point bringing the problems to the table anymore. Bring the solutions to the table. And there's room for all solutions at the table. Do you know what I mean?
That's it. We've become too much like an echo chamber. I mean, like every channel you go on, it's just an echo chamber.
Yeah. And it's all fear porn. Tell us about what's terrible. Let's celebrate what's good in this world and especially in this country.
Yeah. This is our country. We've only got one country, folks, and this is ours. We need to fight for it.
Absolutely. Listen, God bless. That's it.
God bless you as well, and you and yours. And I'll stop the recording now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Go live my huggets.
Take your false road.